I recently made the difficult decision to file for divorce. I have chosen to keep the house and the car. While I may sound calm and composed, my words carry a sharper edge than intended. My expression, a forced smile of resignation, hides the deep wound that has been inflicted upon me. The act of saying these words aloud solidifies my reality, and the pain they carry is sharper than I could have ever anticipated. How could he choose to abandon me at a time when I needed him the most? I had always believed that marriage meant standing together in sickness and in health, in joy and sorrow. We had vowed to face life's adversities side by side, but now, as I sit alone, tears staining my cheeks, I realize that his commitment was nothing more than empty words. The man who once claimed to love me is now a stranger, cold and indifferent, turning his back on me when I am at my weakest. Yet, despite my frailty, something deep within me refuses to break. The anguish he has inflicted will not go unanswered. If he thinks he can walk away unscathed, he is mistaken. I am determined to make him feel even a fraction of the suffering he has caused me. This marks the beginning of a new chapter, one of retribution. My name is Natalie. I am 42 years old, and for the majority of my life, I have dedicated myself to being a loving wife, devoted entirely to my husband and our home. Every day spent with Bruce was once a delight, filled with laughter and tender moments. Our love, so vibrant and intoxicating, made time seem to vanish. When we first met through a mutual friend, I had been captivated by his charm. Bruce had a warm smile and a charismatic presence that made it easy for me to open up to him. Our early days together were like something out of a dream. I eagerly anticipated every moment with him, believing we were destined for a lifetime of happiness. But somewhere along the way, the man I fell in love with changed. Perhaps it was the weight of his job, the frustration of unrealized dreams, or simply the passage of time. His salary was modest, he had never pursued higher education or sought better opportunities, and it seemed to hold him back. I had gently encouraged him to explore new career paths, hoping he would consider better prospects, but he always dismissed my concerns. "It's fine," he would say, "I'm comfortable where I am." At first, I accepted his contentment, but as the years passed, I began to worry. What if we decided to have children? What if something happened to me and I could no longer work? Stability was important, and I thought he would see the wisdom in planning for the future. Then, one day, an opportunity presented itself. A friend from my company's HR department mentioned an administrative position opening up. The role required only basic skills and offered good benefits. I immediately thought of Bruce. It was a stable job, and I was certain he could do well there. Excitedly, I brought up the idea to him that evening. His response was not what I expected. "Why are you making decisions about my job without asking me?" His voice was cold, defensive. "I chose my current job myself. Are you saying there's something wrong with it?" I was taken aback. My suggestion had come from a place of love and concern, not criticism. "I wasn't trying to undermine you," I said carefully. "I just thought this could be a good opportunity. Your current job seems stressful, and I wanted to help." His eyes darkened. "Just because you're my wife doesn't mean you get to control my life." The words stung, laced with an accusation I hadn't expected. He spoke to me as if I were an outsider, as if my concern were an intrusion rather than an expression of care. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over in my mind. Something had shifted between us, something I could no longer ignore. And the distance between us only grew. Even my mother, a kind and selfless woman, could sense it. She often came over when I was at work, tidying up and leaving home-cooked meals for us in the refrigerator. Her gestures were small but meaningful, a mother's way of ensuring her daughter was taken care of. But Bruce resented her presence. One evening, I invited my mother for dinner. As she set the table, Bruce walked in and scowled. "You're here again," he muttered under his breath. The room fell silent. My mother, ever the gracious woman, smiled gently. "It's all right, Natalie," she said, placing a comforting hand on mine. "If my visits are a burden, I'll come by less often." Her words broke my heart. She was trying so hard to be considerate, yet Bruce's irritation was clear. Later that night, I confronted him. "Why would you say that to her?" Bruce sighed, rubbing his temples. "I work all day. When I come home, I just want to relax. It's exhausting to always have someone else here." I tried to understand his perspective, but the bitterness in his tone was undeniable. It felt like yet another wall between us, one I wasn't sure we could tear down. Then, the real trial began. One afternoon at work, I suddenly felt lightheaded, the world around me blurred, and before I could steady myself, darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, the sound of beeping monitors filling the sterile air. Cancer. The word rang in my ears, heavy and suffocating. The doctor's voice was gentle as he explained that it was caught early, that with treatment, I had a strong chance of recovery, but all I could think about was how my world had just been upended. I reached out to Bruce, hoping for support, but he didn't answer. Days passed. I underwent grueling treatments alone, my body weakened but my spirit unwilling to break. Then, one day, Bruce finally appeared. "How are you feeling?" His voice was indifferent, almost detached. "It's rough," I admitted, forcing a smile. "It would have been easier if you were here." He said nothing. Then came the final betrayal. "I filed for divorce," he said flatly. "I'll take the house and the car. I know it's hard, but hang in there. I hope you keep fighting." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My entire body went numb. "You, what?" He didn't even flinch, didn't even look guilty. At that moment, something in me snapped. The pain, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it all melted into something else. Determination. "Fine," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Take them." A smug smile played on his lips as he turned to leave, convinced he had won. But he had just walked into my trap. That night, I made a phone call to an old acquaintance, someone who owed me a favor. "Hello," I said smoothly, "I need your help." After a pause, a quiet chuckle came through the line. "All right, let's give it a try." Bruce had no idea what was coming. I imagined Bruce's shocked and anxious face, the way his brows would furrow, his mouth slightly agape as he struggled to process what was happening. The mere thought of it brought a smirk to my lips, a small but satisfying victory in my ongoing battle to reclaim my life. This newfound sense of excitement wasn't just about Bruce, it was about me. It breathed fresh energy into my daily routine, even motivating me to approach my medical treatments with renewed vigor. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some control, like I was finally the one making the moves rather than being at the mercy of circumstances. A few days passed, each one feeling lighter than the last. Then, one afternoon, after completing a particularly exhausting treatment session, I glanced at my phone and was met with an almost comical sight: 102 missed calls from Bruce. A slow thrill crept over me. The desperation, the sheer urgency of his repeated attempts to reach me, was oddly satisfying. I let the moments sink in before finally calling him back, my voice steady and composed as his came through the line, shaking with anxiety. "Natalie, help me, I never expected this." His voice cracked, laced with panic. I bit back a chuckle. This was exactly what I had planned. With a practiced tone of concern, I asked, "Bruce, tell me what happened." There was a pause before he took a deep breath, as if trying to steady himself. "My name's on the company's layoff list. I can't believe this is happening." I closed my eyes briefly, savoring the moment, the panic, the disbelief. It was all unfolding just as I had orchestrated. The person I had reached out to was the head of sales at our company. I had subtly suggested he reconsider the business dealings with Bruce's company. At first, he had been puzzled by my request, but after reviewing their transaction history, he made a business decision that was, in all fairness, completely logical. Bruce's company simply wasn't the best partner anymore. That single shift set off a domino effect that led to Bruce's downfall. Deciding to twist the knife a little deeper, I added another element to his mounting distress. "You know," I said lightly, as if the thought had just occurred to me, "there are rumors in your company about you and the new girl. Everyone seems to like her." I could almost hear his breath hitch through the phone. "What?" "She's always so cheerful," I continued, "so naturally. There are whispers about an affair. Is there any truth to that?" Silence, then, a sharp intake of breath. "Are you serious?" "You can't be serious. This has to be a joke." His disbelief was amusing. After all, who would suspect that an ordinary employee like me had such influence? I let the silence stretch a bit before deciding to drop the biggest bombshell yet. "Well, actually," I said, my tone steady, "I'm the CEO of this company." Dead silence. Bruce was trying to process what I had just said, and I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. "It's no lie," I continued smoothly. "That was the reason we had been living so comfortably. My annual income is around $5 million. Your regular salary wouldn't have been enough to support your lavish shopping habits. The truth was, Bruce's spending was out of control. The $2,500 monthly allowance I had given him functioned as a second salary, yet it had never been enough. He would constantly come to me with pleading eyes and an expectant tone, saying, "Can I have a little more?" It was almost laughable now. The money he received from me had probably surpassed his actual salary at some point. While most people would have adjusted their lifestyle accordingly, Bruce never did, and why would he? He had me as his personal financial safety net, but that time was over. "Bruce, yesterday was payday, wasn't it?" I reminded him. "I've always given you extra money on payday, but that might be difficult from now on. We're not a couple anymore, and it's only natural that you can't expect that monthly allowance." And then, the final blow. "Oh, and be careful with the mortgage. It's $3,800 a month. I know it'll be tough, but you'll need to manage it well. If you're late with the payment, you might have to leave the house." Bruce's breathing grew uneven, his mind racing as he tried to grasp the full weight of what I was telling him. His sense of security was crumbling, and the vulnerability in his voice was almost pitiful. "Really, can this be happening?" he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. This was the result of his actions. He had spent years taking advantage of my generosity, prioritizing his own desires over our relationship, and now, he was forced to face the consequences. "Why did it come to this?" he said finally. "I've been laid off, and now I have to figure out how to get by. How am I going to pay the rent this month?" His despair was palpable, but then, after a long pause, his tone shifted. There was something else now, an edge of desperation laced with something almost hopeful. "Wait, can we reconsider our relationship one more time? I know it sounds selfish, but I realize now how important you were to me." I felt a dull pang in my chest, not of longing, but of exhaustion. The thought of returning to that cycle of manipulation and heartache was suffocating. "I know I've been reckless," he pressed on. "I'm sorry I couldn't visit you in the hospital more often, but once you're better, let's go somewhere peaceful and have a relaxing time together. I want to see your smile again." His words carried the echo of the promises he had made at the beginning of our relationship, promises that had long since turned to dust. "Stop it already," I said, my voice firm. "We're done. I've chosen a new path, and I can't go back." There was silence again, but I could sense he wanted to say more. "Please," he finally whispered, "let me say one last thing. I truly loved you, Natalie. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here." I took a slow, deep breath, my decision unwavering. "Enough. Words like that won't change my mind. Think about it. Don't you have another girlfriend? Shouldn't you focus on her?" I had learned about his new relationship through his boss. His sudden declarations of love felt hollow, a last-ditch effort to hold on to the life he had lost. "We can't be together anymore. Spend quality time with her and forget about me. I will not be reaching out, but if you need to contact me, speak to my lawyer. Take care of yourself, Bruce." I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. My lawyer later informed me that Bruce had attempted to reach out several times, but I remained firm. Surprisingly, my lawyer suggested pursuing damages, a thought I hadn't considered but now seemed like a fitting form of closure. Meanwhile, I had managed to overcome cancer and make a full recovery. It was a journey that had tested me, but I had emerged stronger. As word spread that I was single again, colleagues tried to set me up with potential suitors. But for now, I was content to focus on myself, on my own happiness, and that was more than enough.